They don't have to say anything. You feel it the moment you walk in. The mood changes, quietly, but clearly. People stop laughing. Conversations die down. Smiles start to look a little forced, like they're holding something back. Their eyes shift away, their posture changes. It's not something they do on purpose, it just happens. And the strange thing is, you haven't even said a word. You're not rude. You're not showing off. You're just there. And still, the whole room feels different. It's like your presence carries gravity, an invisible weight that bends the energy around you. People feel it before they understand it. You don't just enter a room, you shift its frequency. You're not loud, but your silence speaks volumes. You don't try to stand out, you walk with intention. You notice what others overlook. You hear the pauses between words, the truths buried in tone, the emotions people try to hide behind polite smiles. And that unnerves them. Not because you're trying to intimidate them. Not because you're unkind. But because you're real, and realness is rare. You're not masking. You're not performing. You're not playing by the social script everyone else recites without thinking. You're unscripted. And that makes people feel exposed. Seen. Disarmed. Because your presence doesn't entertain illusion, it reflects truth. Quietly. Steadily. And for those who've built their identity on appearances, that kind of honesty feels like a spotlight they never asked for. You don't try to dominate. You simply are, unapologetically whole, unshakably grounded, and unafraid to exist without permission. And somehow, that alone is enough to rearrange the room. You ask questions that make people pause. You look at them like you actually see who they are, not just the version they try to show the world. You listen in a way that makes silence feel full, not awkward. And when you speak, it's never to fill space. It's because you have something real to say. That's rare. And people feel exposed around that kind of energy, even if you're just being yourself. You don't force yourself into the spotlight. But somehow, the spotlight moves when you do. You don't try to control the room, but the room reacts to you. You walk in, and without meaning to, you break the surface. You make things feel deeper, more real, less comfortable, but more honest. And whether they admit it or not, people remember you. Because you're not easy to forget. And you were never meant to be. All your life, people have made you feel like you're too much. Too intense. Too quiet. Too deep. Too serious. Too sensitive. Too observant. As if there's something wrong with seeing the world the way you do. But what if you're not too much at all? What if you're just tuned in a way most people aren't? What if you're connected to a layer of reality others spend their whole lives avoiding? The famous psychologist Carl Jung believed something powerful, that we each carry an inner world that silently shapes how others see us, feel us, react to us. Not because we're doing anything loud or dramatic, but because our presence speaks a language deeper than words. You might not shine in the way people expect, but you pull. You draw people in. There's a kind of gravity to you, psychological gravity, that others can't explain but definitely feel. And maybe that's why they don't know how to handle you. You remind them of things they've buried. You reflect a truth they're not ready to face. But you faced it. You've been through the hard questions. The confusion, the pain, the paradoxes. And instead of hiding from it, you let it shape you. And that's why your energy is different. Why your presence says more than your words ever could. If any of this is making sense, if you feel this deep in your bones, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because this is just the start. We're going to dive even deeper. To Jung, this wasn't spiritual fluff, it was psychological fact. He saw people as living frequencies, broadcasting who they are through every interaction, every look, every silence. And the more honest you've been with yourself, the clearer that frequency becomes. Not by trying harder, but by becoming more you. That's presence. In its realest form. When someone has truly faced their own darkness, the fears they've hidden, the desires they were told to suppress, the doubts they never dared to say out loud, they don't just walk into a room. They change it. There's a stillness in them that doesn't pretend, a quiet strength that doesn't chase validation. And that energy, it speaks volumes, even in silence. People notice it. They might not know why, but they feel it. Before they can explain it, something inside them shifts. Sometimes they flinch. Sometimes they pull away. Not because of anything you've done, but because of what your presence reflects, the parts of themselves they've never fully faced. You're not too intense. You're not too complicated. You're not broken. You're simply real, in a world obsessed with pretending. You're a mirror in a room full of masks. A glitch in a system built on surface-level comfort. And in a culture that thrives on fake smiles and filtered identities, nothing is more disruptive than someone who shows up raw, whole, and impossible to define. The power you carry, it's not charisma in the traditional sense. It's not about being charming or well-liked. It's deeper than that. It's existential, philosophical. Your very being says, I'm not here to perform, I'm here to be true. And for people who've never stopped to question the roles they play, that kind of honesty is terrifying. You don't follow the script. You don't bend to be palatable. You don't shrink to fit in. You exist in a way that breaks the illusion. And that shakes the foundations of the fake realities around you. You don't disturb the peace. You disturb the performance. And that's exactly why your presence matters. You're not misunderstood because you lack clarity. You're misunderstood because you defy their categories. Most people need boxes, neat little definitions that help them feel in control. Friend or stranger, safe or dangerous, right or wrong. But you don't fit. You bend those labels until they collapse. You exist in the in-between, the liminal space where identity is fluid and meaning is questioned. You don't walk through the world according to its design, you challenge it just by being real. Your presence is not just noticed, it's felt. And that feeling, it unsettles people. Not because you're aggressive, but because you're honest in a world trained to lie. There's something about you that invites vulnerability. Strangers speak their pain before they know your name. They tell you secrets they've carried for years, not because you asked, but because something in you listens without judgment. You're not offering platitudes or motivational quotes. You're offering space, silence, depth, the kind of stillness that feels like being seen for the very first time. But that gift is also a burden. Because while you hold space for others, you often carry the weight alone. You walk into rooms and pick up on what isn't being said, the tension, the fear, the quiet desperation hidden behind laughter. You feel the emotional debris in the air like static on your skin. And it drains you, not because you're weak, but because you were never taught how to protect that sensitivity. No one warned you that emotional depth comes with spiritual fatigue, that being open means being porous. And the world, for all its noise, rarely offers anything to fill you back up. Philosophers knew this pain. Socrates carried it in his questions. Nietzsche in his madness. Kierkegaard in his isolation. To think deeply is to pierce the veil. To feel deeply is to carry the ache of truth. And when you walk with that kind of awareness, the world starts to feel distant. People laugh at things you can't find funny. They chase things you can't pretend to care about. You're not above them, you're just elsewhere. And that distance, that quiet exile of the soul, is both your gift and your grief. People say you're quiet, as if that's the whole story. But what they really mean is, your silence makes me uncomfortable. You don't rush to fill empty space with noise. You let the silence breathe. And in that stillness, something happens. People hear the echoes of their own minds. They're confronted by the thoughts they've buried, the insecurities they hide behind small talk, the emotions they've numbed with distraction. That's why your presence unsettles them. You don't have to say a word. Just by being, you hold up a mirror. And in that mirror, they don't always like what they see. So they name you cold, distant, difficult. But these aren't your traits, they're their discomfort, wearing your face. What they fear isn't you, it's their own unprocessed truth reflected back without a filter. You navigate the world in a different dimension. Not higher, not lower, but deeper. You're not impressed by surface-level performance. You don't confuse confidence with certainty or popularity with wisdom. You see through things, through motives, through masks, through the fragile scaffolding of social games. And that kind of perception doesn't seek attention. It commands respect. You're not interested in dominance, but presence. Not control, but clarity. You move with a gravity that doesn't ask for validation. And for people whose power depends on illusion, on approval, titles, image, that kind of raw authenticity is threatening. Not because you're trying to take anything from them, but because you remind them how little they've actually claimed for themselves. You don't need to be loud to be heard. You don't need a crown to rule your space. Because the kind of power you carry, it isn't performative, it's real. And real power doesn't announce itself, it radiates. Often, the very people who once admired your insight are the first to disappear. They come close, drawn to your clarity like moths to a flame, only to flinch when the heat gets too real. They seek your perspective until it reflects something they're not ready to face. They thank you for opening their eyes, then quietly exit when the truth becomes too loud to ignore. Not because they hate you, because they're not ready for what you reveal. You're not their final chapter. You're the plot twist, the catalyst, the moment everything shifts. And with that role comes solitude, not as punishment, but as protection. Your soul doesn't crave constant company. It craves clarity. You've learned that not every connection is nourishment. That not all closeness is genuine. Your solitude isn't loneliness, it's preservation. It's sacred space where falsehood can't breathe. Where the echoes of your own thoughts have room to unfold. You don't fear being alone. You fear pretending to belong. Because the weight you carry is not sadness, it's significance. As Carl Jung taught, individuation, becoming a whole and integrated self, is not a trend. It's a transformation. And most people would rather repeat the familiar than risk becoming someone they don't yet recognize. But not you. You were born with a different compass, one that doesn't point to applause or admiration, but to truth. And that journey, it's not always beautiful. It's rarely celebrated. It unravels illusions you didn't even know you had. And once your eyes open, they stay open. There's no turning back. Awakening doesn't come with fanfare. It comes with fire, with grief, with stillness. It strips you down, not to break you, but to reveal the core that was always there, untouched, unshakable. And in a world that runs from depth, you stand in it. Alone, maybe, but never hollow. You're not here to blend in. You're here to disrupt, quietly, powerfully, without needing permission. You don't carry chaos, but you do carry change. The kind that moves beneath the surface. The kind that doesn't shout, but still echoes in every room you walk into. You're not loud, but you're unmistakable. People don't just hear you, they feel you. And that alone rewrites the atmosphere. You don't follow trends. You follow truth. And truth doesn't always wear a friendly face. It cuts through illusion. It rattles what's comfortable. Your very presence is a reminder that something real still exists in a world wired for image, for speed, for surface-level affirmation. You don't chase attention. But somehow, it finds you anyway, because authenticity is magnetic, even when it terrifies. People project their discomfort onto you. They call you intense, cold, standoffish, when what they really mean is, you make me confront the parts of myself I've buried. You're not here to entertain. You're here to expose. Not with cruelty, but with clarity. You don't force people to change, you invite them to wake up. And not everyone is ready for that kind of invitation. But the ones who are, they find something in you they didn't know they were missing. Not comfort, not convenience, but recognition. Like meeting a mirror that finally reflects something true. You don't coddle. You don't flatter. You witness. You listen with your entire being. And in that listening, people collapse. Walls fall. Masks drop. Because with you, pretending feels pointless. And no, this path hasn't made you popular. It's made you powerful. Quietly. Subtly. authentically. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just becoming everything you were meant to be, piece by piece. And that process, raw, vulnerable, relentless, is sacred. You've earned your solitude. You've made peace with your silence. You've stopped shrinking to fit spaces that were never designed for your depth. You are not too much. You are finally enough for yourself. You are not cold. You're precise. You are not intimidating. You're uncompromising. You are not broken. You're becoming. And you are not here to fit into their story. You are here to write your own. In a world obsessed with filters, distraction, and false smiles, being real isn't just rare. It's revolutionary.